The entire dojo went silent the moment the black belt laughed and said, "Come on, it's just for fun." No one expected the janitor to step onto the mat. And no one expected what happened next. It was a Thursday evening at Ironwool Martial Arts Academy. The air smelled of sweat and disinfectant. Parents lined the benches, watching their kids bow and practice combinations under the sharp voice of Coach Daniel. Trophies glittered on the shelves, reflecting years of discipline and pride. In the far corner of the room, pushing a mop bucket quietly along the wall, was Michael Carter. Most people didn't know his last name. To them, he was just Mike the janitor. The man who wiped the mirrors, emptied the trash, and stayed late every night long after the final bow. But to one little girl sitting cross-legged near the wall, he was Dad. Emily Carter was 9 years old. Small for her age. Shy. She wore a borrowed white uniform that had been altered 3 times to fit her. The patches were slightly crooked, but her smile wasn't. Michael had started working at the dojo 2 years earlier. After his wife, Grace, passed away from an unexpected illness, everything in his world collapsed. Hospital bills swallowed his savings. His construction job downsized. And suddenly, he was a single father with a grieving daughter and no clear path forward. He took the janitor job because it came with one important benefit: Emily could train for free. That meant everything to him. Emily had always been timid. After losing her mother, she barely spoke at school. Kids whispered about her old clothes. One boy once laughed and called her Charity Case when he found out she trained on scholarship. Michael heard about it that night when he tucked her into bed and saw the tears she tried to hide. So he worked harder. Longer hours. Extra cleaning shifts. Anything to make sure she could keep training. "Martial arts isn't just fighting," he would tell her softly. "It's about believing you're stronger than your fear." But there was something about Michael that no one at the dojo knew. Before life humbled him, before grief bent his shoulders and exhaustion lined his face, Michael Carter had once been a fighter. Years ago, he had trained seriously under Master Thomas in a small town in Ohio. He earned his black belt after nearly a decade of relentless discipline. He had even competed nationally. But when Grace got pregnant with Emily, he stepped away from tournaments to work steady hours. Then responsibilities piled up. Training faded into memory. Until it became something he kept secret. Late at night, after mopping the floors, Michael would stand in front of the mirror. Slowly, quietly, he would bow to his reflection and practice forms under dim lights. His movements were fluid, controlled, powerful, not flashy, just precise. One evening, Jason Reed, the dojo's star black belt, walked in unexpectedly. Jason was 24, undefeated in regional tournaments, and very aware of it. He thrived on applause. His kicks were fast, his confidence faster. He leaned against the doorway, smirking. "Didn't know we had a ghost training here," Jason said. Michael froze. "Just stretching." Jason stepped onto the mat, circling him. "You ever actually fight? Or just mop around?" A few students still packing up stopped to watch. Michael shrugged. "I'm just the janitor." Jason laughed. "Tell you what. Let's spar. For fun." The words hung in the air. Coach Daniel looked uneasy. "Jason." But the room had already shifted. Students gathered. Parents leaned forward. Even Emily stood slowly, eyes wide. Michael's first instinct was to refuse. He didn't need attention. He didn't want drama. He especially didn't want Emily seeing him get embarrassed. But then he saw her face. Not fear. Hope. He set the mop aside. "Okay," he said quietly. They bowed. The first few seconds were cautious. Jason bounced lightly on his feet, testing distance. He threw a quick roundhouse, fast, sharp. Michael blocked it effortlessly. A murmur rippled through the room. Jason's smirk faded slightly. He increased speed. A combination, jab, cross, spinning back kick. Michael stepped aside with minimal movement. Calm. Centered. Years of muscle memory awakened inside him like a sleeping lion. Jason lunged aggressively, trying to overwhelm him. But Michael didn't attack wildly. He waited, watched, controlled his breathing the way Master Thomas had taught him decades ago. Then it happened. Jason overcommitted on a spinning hook kick. In one smooth motion, Michael pivoted, redirected the momentum, and swept Jason cleanly off his feet. Jason hit the mat flat on his back. The sound echoed. Silence. Complete, stunned silence. Jason stared up at the ceiling, blinking. Michael extended his hand and helped him up. Balance, Michael said gently. Always protect your center. Coach Daniel's jaw was practically on the floor. Jason tried again. This time more cautious. More respectful. The sparring continued for several minutes, controlled, disciplined. And though Michael never humiliated him, it was clear to everyone watching who possessed the deeper mastery. When Coach Daniel finally called time, the room erupted. Not cheering. Not shouting. But something more powerful, awe. Emily ran onto the mat and hugged her father tightly. You're amazing, she whispered. Michael knelt down. No, sweetheart. What matters isn't winning. It's showing up. Jason approached slowly, breathing hard. His pride had taken a hit, but something else had replaced it. Respect. I didn't know, Jason admitted. Why didn't you ever say anything? Michael glanced around the dojo. Because belts fade. Titles fade. What stays is character. That night changed everything. Coach Daniel asked Michael to assist with classes. At first part-time, then officially as an instructor. The dojo learned that true mastery doesn't always wear expensive gear or demand attention. Jason began training differently after that. Less ego. More humility. But the biggest change was in Emily. At school, when someone teased her, she stood taller. Not because her dad had defeated a black belt, but because she now understood strength came from quiet perseverance. Months later, during a small ceremony, Coach Daniel presented Michael with an instructor's uniform. Some warriors fight for trophies, Coach Daniel said. Others fight for their family. Michael fights for both. The applause that night wasn't loud, it was heartfelt. And as Michael stood beside his daughter, he realized something profound. Life had knocked him down harder than any opponent ever could. He had lost his wife, lost his career, lost his direction. But he had never lost his discipline, never lost his integrity, never lost the quiet fire inside him. Sometimes the world sees a janitor, but God sees a warrior. And sometimes all it takes is one moment on the mat to remind everyone, including yourself, who you truly are. The lesson spread beyond the dojo walls. Never underestimate the quiet man in the corner. Never mock the person who serves. And never assume someone's worth based on their title. Because strength isn't about showing off. It's about showing up, especially when life has given you every reason not to. And that night, a black belt learned humility. A dojo learned respect. And a little girl learned that her father was more than a janitor. He was a champion.